Hello friends and fellow flight simmers, welcome back to yet another episode of Carenado Piper P34T Seneca 5 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We are currently traveling towards the Level Island VOR and cruising at 8,000 feet. As you remember from the last episode, the engine is leaned and the cruise power is set, and we are tracking the Level Island VOR station at the frequency of 116.5. Let's jump into the cockpit, and I have a couple things to discuss, and from there we will fast forward the video and bring you guys back when we are ready to pass over the Level Island VOR. Alright, that's better. Now we have less noise. But what I'm trying to explain here, which I think I didn't do a good job in the last episode, is to talk about the radio navigation a little bit in detail and go over the instruments that is used for radio navigation. Okay, our CDI for NAV1 radio, which is our active nav source. Let's synchronize the heading, and please do remember to synchronize your heading all the time, because you may never know when your radios will fail or your autopilot will go out of nav, and your heading will be your saver, because if you don't synchronize this, you might start wondering why the aircraft started to turn left or right all of a sudden. So that's a good practice to remember. So our CDI for NAV1 radio, which is tracking 116.5, as I said, at the top avionics unit, GNS 530. And our standby for the next is 114.0, if you remember from the first or second tutorial. So that's standby. And we will do the opposite here, 114.00. and 116.5 as the standby, as a backup. If this unit fails, we will use this one to navigate. Alright, so those are our frequencies. We are already picking the signal, and we need to set the course for NAV2, which is going to be 306. So now let's talk about how we are going to know when to change frequencies and start tracking the next VOR station. So we discussed the CDI, we have our DME information here. If the nav radio you are tracking is a VOR DME that has the distance display capabilities or signal from a DME, you will see the distance to that VOR station on your DME reader, 43.4 miles. Same goes for NAV2, which you scroll to N2 here. We are 169 miles away from the second VOR station, which is 114.00. That's the active frequency on our NAV2 radio, remember, and we see the signal here too. So that's our DME information that we can see. And it says we have 14 minutes before we reach our destination. Our nav radio is tracking the VOR. The needle is not centered because we have crosswind coming at 47 knots, as you see, and the autopilot is correcting for the wind. Alright, so the question of today is, how am I going to know when to change the next frequency? If you have a DME, that's easy. You track the distance. When you get close, last 2-3 miles, you change your frequency by going to heading mode first, changing the frequency, setting your next course for the next station, and go back to nav, and then the aircraft will follow what you set. If you are not picking the signal from your second VOR station on your flight plan, in this instance we are, but you might not be able to do that. A little bit more information about the VOR stations is their range is limited between 100 to 160, 70 miles. Depends on how strong the signal is, and the simulator, the Microsoft Flight Simulator, is not simulating that properly like in real life. So you might not be receiving the signal from your next station. In that case, on a VOR station, let me switch to our little nav map screen so that I can explain this a little bit easy. Alright, so this is us, that's Level Island VOR, and as you see we have an inbound course 309, which I changed to 308. If you take a look at the simulator window, you'll see 308 on the nav radio. When the screen comes bigger, check that, because it was a little bit off to the left side, so I made my correction. 309 will also work. You will be traveling a little bit off course, or not what I see on the little nav map window. So this is our inbound course 309, and we have an outbound course of 306, as you see here. So this is 2 Level Island VOR, and we see that with this white arrow pointing the same direction as the yellow one, that means we are traveling to that VOR station. Also on NAV2 radio, I need to make the screen bigger and explain this here in a second. Just bear me for a second. I know you can't see that simulator screen big enough. So this is our inbound course to the VOR, and this is our outbound course from the VOR station. So 306, 309. Remember these, and we will come back to this screen here in a little bit. In our navigation instruments, we have NAV1 radio tracking Level Island VOR, this white arrow pointing the same direction as the yellow one, which means we are traveling to the VOR station on a course of 308, which we set this by this yellow one. Don't mix this with the heading. Heading is completely different. This is the course, this is heading. On our NAV2 radio, we are tracking Sister Island VOR, which is 114.00, and as you see, we are tracking that on a course of 306 roughly, which is our outbound course. And the display shows 2 here as well. If you cannot see this good enough, let me zoom in a little bit and you'll be able to see it. I think this is a better view. As you see, it says 2 in that white arrow right there. Sorry, I had to scroll up and down to bring my cursor back. This is a bug with Microsoft Flight Simulator that they haven't fixed yet. Tracking course 306 roughly to Sister Island VOR. So if we were not receiving signal from our NAV2 radio, in that case, let me get back to our NAV1. What we have to do is we have to wait until we cover all the distance to our VOR station we are tracking on our NAV1 radio, which is Level Island VOR. When we reach to Level Island, you will see this needle flipping backwards and it will go haywire. And I will demonstrate that when we get close to there. And when this happens, your autopilot might go out of nav and go back to nothing here, and that's when you need the heading to follow the heading until you make the adjustments to your CDI. What you need to do is go to heading mode when you get close, or when this needle flips backward. Go to heading mode, let the autopilot fly the aircraft on that given heading, and set your second course as the outbound course, which is 306. That's close. This might be a something completely different on a different flight plan, depending on what you are tracking and whether you need to turn left or right. So this outbound course might be different. For our example here, it's 306. We set 306 on the course, and this arrow will start pointing down, which means we are traveling from that VOR station or away from that VOR station on an outbound course of 306. So these are the differences between an inbound and outbound course. If you are not receiving the signal, you can perfectly track the outbound course by using the same VOR station, but this time traveling away from it until you start receiving the signal from your next one, which you will, depends on the distance. You might receive it A little after tracking this, and you should be safe for at least 70 to 100 miles when you are on an outbound course. Depends on how strong the signal is, but in Microsoft Flight Simulator that has been my experience. And in that 100 miles you should receive the signal from your next one. How we are going to know we started receiving the signal though, if we are not receiving that at the moment? Alright, so our aircraft has an equipment to let us know about that signal. Let me bring the Navigraph window. So this is Level Island, right? Level Island VOR, and you see couple dots under that. I don't know why am I not able to zoom, but you see these dots, series of dots. This is the Morse code of Level Island VOR station. So it's Lima Victor Delta in Morse code. You can look this up. Dot dash dot 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 dash dash dot dot. So this is the Morse code of Lima Victor Delta, 3 letters. Okay, and our nav radio has an audio side of it. When I turn this nav1 audio on, you will start hearing that Morse code. Let me increase the simulator's sound a little bit so that you can hear that with me. Watch what happens when I turn this on. You hearing that? That's exactly sounding like that Morse code I read to you. So if you are not receiving the signal from your NAV2, you can turn NAV2 audio on, and then you will start hearing the Morse code, which tells you that you started to pick up the signal from that VOR station, and you can then set your course and maybe switch to that frequency if you are tracking an outbound course, which I will demonstrate when we get to Level Island. I will stay on this VOR station and pretend like we didn't receive the signal from our sister island VOR, and I'll try to demonstrate what you need to do, and I'll let you watch what happens to the needle when we get there. We are close, 14 miles, so I'm not gonna cut the video. And this is NAV2. We are hearing sister island VOR, and each VOR station has this. So if I scroll and take a look at sister's island, dash 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 dot dash dash dot dash dot. So listen closely. Dot 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 dash dot. That's exactly what it is. So this is a way of making sure you are receiving the signal of the correct VOR station as well. We are in the soup a little bit, so I'm gonna turn on my my prop heat is on. I'm gonna turn my windshield heat on, just in case if we have icing around. We should have avoided that cloud, but I was busy explaining things. So we are getting close to Level Island, 10 miles, and watch the needle when we have a mile left, and when we pass over that station we will lose the signal, and our autopilot will go out of nav when we lose a signal. That's what happens in this aircraft. If you lose the signal from a station, the autopilot will drop nav or get out of nav and start flying the heading. We'll see that happening here in a second. Just watch with me, but I just wanted to explain the navigation and how we would do this with the conventional radio navigation instruments like NAV1 and NAV2 radio and a CDI. Just a quick recap while we are traveling the last 8 miles to Level Island. Inbound course, traveling to that VOR station. That white arrow shows us we are traveling to the VOR. An outbound course, when we pass over it, the needle will go haywire and start going around, and when we get close the sensitivity will also increase, and you'll see this needle flipping backwards and this arrow going showing down, which means we are traveling from that VOR station, and that's when we need to set our new course and hit nav again to start tracking that course. On the nav 2, set your frequency for your next VOR station. If you are not receiving the signal, turn nav 2 on and wait for the Morse code to hear it. That's when you will know you started to pick up the signal from that station. And the needle will display set your course. When this needle comes into the middle, that's when you need to change the frequencies. If you don't have a DME reader, this needle would get closer and closer and closer, and eventually to the middle. That's when you switch frequencies to start tracking the other course, which we will see in the next VOR station right before our landing. 4 miles to Level Island. Just watch the needle and see what it does. I'm just trying to demonstrate, and we will set the course 306 and track it outbound using the same frequency. I'm not gonna change the frequencies. I just want you guys to see, and I will bring the little navmap window for you to see that the aircraft is following that course perfectly. Okay, and because we are going 308, I might do 305 instead of 6, but we'll see. Alright, last 2.5 miles and 1 minute to Level Island VOR. Just wait a little bit more and you will see this needle losing the signal when we are on top of the VOR station. That's what happens. You don't receive the signal right above the VOR station. If you are overhead perfectly on top of the station, you will not receive a signal. Last 1 miles, and as you see, we stopped seeing the DME. Oh, we didn't. We will stop seeing the DME information as well. Right on top of that, as you see, we lost the signal. It shows like it is displaying, but the arrow went and then came back pointing backwards, and autopilot went out of nav, as you see. Now let's set the course to 306 and hit nav again. We will see the aircraft turning to our new course, and when it completes turning and start tracking the next course, our outbound course, I will bring the little navmap window back for you guys to see, and then we will switch frequencies and see the difference. Again, arrow is pointing back down, which means we are traveling away from that VOR station on a course of 306. Let's synchronize our heading, very important. And this needle is almost at the center, that's 306, so that means we are on course. And let's take a look at the little navmap window, shall we? Alright, as you see, we are here, just past Level Island VOR as we suspected. Lost the signal, autopilot went out of nav, and now we are tracking our outbound course 306 following the same signal 116.5. I haven't changed the active frequency. So now let's talk about how we are going to change the frequency. Let's bring the simulator back and demonstrate that. Alright, we will go heading mode and make sure our heading is synced like so. Go heading mode, switch to frequency, the next frequency 114.00, switch this one so that we keep 1165.5 as a backup, and we'll set the course to 306, which is already set if you haven't, and hit nav again, and you'll see aircraft following that signal, and the course is not going to change a lot. We flew the heading mode a little bit, so we drifted off course just a little bit because of the wind. Now the aircraft is correcting itself and coming back to the same course, and I will show the window to you. And as you see, this is perfectly center now. We are, and because this is now displaying Level Island VOR instead of Sisters Island, 116.5 is the active. You are seeing from here on this needle. I'll bring the little navmap window back when we are back on course. Sometimes you have to cycle the autopilot. It goes haywire. Let's try this again, and see if it will catch. This happens with this aircraft, so sometimes you have to do this to get the aircraft back on course. And hit nav mode again, and let's see if the aircraft will turn and start capturing that signal. Let's turn it off completely, turn it back on. Let's nav and see if it will happen. Sometimes this happens, guys, so we are drifting off course right now. The aircraft is not tracking the signal of 114.00, and we are not getting back on course, unfortunately. Either we broke the autopilot. Let's turn it off. Turn it off one more time. Let's see. Did we capture it? Looks like we did. Now we started turning. So this happens with this aircraft, so be mindful of this and know that this might happen. And yep, we are now getting back on course. And I think it is a little bit off still, so I'll try 305 like I did with the other station and see if the aircraft will get back on course. Looks like it is trying to turn as far as I can see, and we have strong crosswind. That's why the aircraft is shaking. We shouldn't be flying in the cloud with this aircraft like this, so I'll keep the anti-ice systems on and surface de-icing. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Alright, surface de-icers are now on. Hopefully we will not build so much ice, and I'm not sure if that's modeled or not. So I'm waiting the aircraft to get back on track, and I will bring you guys back. Not bring you guys back, I will display the little nav map window and show you guys how it looks like in little nav map, and we will just cut the video there, and I'll bring you guys back when we are ready to pass Sister Island VOR. Just waiting for the aircraft to get back on course, which it will shortly. We drifted off course quite a bit, so now we should see the aircraft correct in its position and capturing that new course of 306 or 305 in our case. That's what I said to the nav radio, by thinking 309 was 1 degree off, and I just did my correction. And this is coming from little nav map and how I see the aircraft, so you wouldn't see this in real life when you don't have any other tools that you are using. Alright, we are now on course. The needle is perfectly upright, and I'll bring the little nav map window for you guys to see how it looks like there. Here it is, that's us, and as you see we are following that course just fine. So this is how you navigate using the conventional radio navigation of your aircraft. I hope this was enough explanation to you guys, and I am looking forward to hear your navigation stories. So please let me know in the comments how it went for you, and if you have any questions, I might be able to help you with those as well. I will stop the video here, bring you guys back when we are ready to pass Sisters Island VOR. See you in a little bit, guys. Welcome back, friends. We are flying in the soup, pretty iced up as you see from the wing ice light, and in clouds. So in this aircraft we shouldn't be flying in clouds, but I just wanted to keep the same altitude and bring you guys back and explain what is happening right now. So we are currently traveling towards Sister Island VOR, tracking that station on a course of 305. And let me bring this back, 305, and the frequency 114.0. On our standby is the LDA frequency, which is the localizer 109.90, and our NAV2 radio is tuned to that as active frequency. We are not picking up signal, and we will not until 20 miles from the localizer. Localizer's range are limited and you get the signal between 20-90 miles, somewhere that range. And as a backup, I tuned the ADF frequency of that same airport. I will display the chart here in a little bit, and that's the ADF radio tracking 212. Okay, so that's a backup and more situational awareness. We got out of the clouds finally. We are, looks like, going back in them here in a little bit. Let's take a look at the chart and do the approach briefing. So we are landing to Juneau with an LDA approach into runway 8, right? So that's our approach path. This is Sister Island. After Sister Island, we are going to track 007 towards Linz. And then when we reach Linz, we should be picking up the signal from the ILS, which I can demonstrate by turning nav 2. You will hear the Morse code dot 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 dash 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 dot 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 dash dot dot, which is, this is what we should be hearing. So we'll track 007 using Sister Island VOR, same frequency. We will just change the course and you will see that in live demonstration like we did with the Level Island. But this time we will be tracking outbound from Sister Island, traveling towards Linz, and that distance is roughly 12.4 miles. On our vertical profile, because LDA approaches does not have vertical guidance, the pilot needs to descend, and this is our vertical profile. We're coming at 8,000. At 10 miles we are expected to be at 6,300, and by Linz we need to descend down to 5,600. And Barlow, which is our short final 8 miles from the runway, we are going to descend down to 3,700. Our minimums is 3,200 by the time we get to this altitude. If we don't have a visual of the runway, that's a go around for LDA approach. We shouldn't attempt to land, and we should go around. If the clouds are not letting us to see the runway, that's too bad, but that's what you need to do. So, and we will use this descent profile from 3,700 down into the runway. We will set our speed to 100 knots and we will descend at 600-700 feet per minute by setting the VS mode so that we are somehow on a vertical profile that's suggested by the chart. So that's our descent and approach briefing. We are tracking 305 coming towards here. We don't see our aircraft, but we will if I turn this on right there. We will track inbound 305. When we reach Sister Island, we will start tracking outbound 007 until we reach to Linz. When we reach to Linz, we'll switch frequencies and go to the localizer, and the aircraft should pick the localizer signal and align with the glide path and vertical and lateral navigation path you see here. And then that is the runway. It has an offset localizer, which means on final, if we don't get a visual of the runway, we won't be able to land because we need to make a slight right turn to intercept the runway and land. So that's the plan. At 3,200 we should have a visual. We are getting close to Sister Island, and that frequency from ADF is Kogan Island 212. You can also listen to that too on this radio. We already started picking the signal. Dash dot dash dot dash dash dot dot dash dot dot. Listen to it. So we are on the right frequency. We are already picking the signal, and that we are looking this arrow to point where the aircraft is pointing if we are tracking it correctly. So that's a backup navigation that I set up. This arrow needs to point our aircraft's direction. As you see, there's a little aircraft symbol here. So this arrow will come around and point like so. ADF is a navigation radio that doesn't provide you direction. So that's why you need to have the course set, which is 251. That's already set here, and we are about to reach Level Island, I believe. sister's island. Yes, let's focus on changing the frequencies, because we are now, let's turn the ADF off. We are tracking this right now and waiting for this to lose signal. That's why we have our heading synchronized, so that the aircraft will fly with the same heading, and then we will set the course to 007 and hit nav again, and the aircraft should start tracking an outbound course from sister's island VOR. 2.2 miles, very close. And you can do it right now too, because we know where we are turning. If you want to do that, you can get out of nav to heading mode, set 007, and then start tracking that. It's up to you. I just wanted to demonstrate that one more time. That's why I'm not doing it, but it is also an option. We still haven't picked up the localizer frequency from the LDA, localizer type directional aid, LDA. So we should expect to see this at about 20 miles to the airport. Because we are tracking, as you see, we lost the signal now. Autopilot went out of nav. Let's set our course to 007 now. So that's 0, that's 5, and oops, I went a little bit far, 007, and hit the nav again. Now we should see the aircraft turning, which it is, and sitting on that course again. So this turn might be a little bit wide because we passed over the VOR and took a little bit time to set this up. So the aircraft should turn around and get back on that course. We started to pick the DME. Remember, 12.4 miles is when we should make that turn into the localizer or align with the localizer. And we will see that here too. You will start to see the signal. We have to set the course for that, so the course is not set. Let's see the course. As you see from LINS, our course, final approach course, is 251, which is also displayed. Oh, I'm sorry, 271. That's my bad. 251 is this way, 271. So I need to correct my ADF too to 071. So let's do this. Oops. I hate the zoom of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So aircraft is navigating nicely. So we will set this to, so that's 6, that's 771, and we'll set this to 712. I need to set a button to keep pressed while zooming. So that's 7, that's 7.1. Okay, everything is set now, and we should think about our descent, which we should start right now. Alright, let's talk about descent power setting. We'll drop the throttle to around 20 to 25 inches of manifold pressure. We'll set the vertical speed to 1,000 feet per minute, and we can come back on the RPM to about 2200 as well. Let's bring this digital gauge, so let's go down to 2300 first, or close to 2200, so that we don't overspeed. Alright, we are now descending, and we are descending to 5600, remember. And hearing the Morse code, we started to pick the signal from the localizer, and this needle will start moving to the center. That's when we know we are intercepting that course and need to switch nav sources. So keep that in mind. This will start moving towards middle. Let's focus on the altitude now, and let's also set the pressure by pressing the B key. That's cheating because I have to listen to METAR information to do that, but I'm too busy explaining things, so I just cheated a little bit. So looks like the ice is gone, or at least going away. We drop below the clouds. We will keep the anti-ice systems on for now, and let's turn that off, because now we know we started receiving the signal and the ADF is pointing towards there. So this needle will start coming close to the center. and we are looking for 5600. We need to come back on the manifold pressure towards 20 and slow down a little bit to give the aircraft time to descend to 5600 before it's too late. Alright, just watching this needle and waiting for that to come towards the middle. That's what I'm looking for right now. And the ADF will start pointing towards that needle as well, towards the right. As you see, the needle started moving. That means we need to start switching frequencies. So let's center the heading. See, I forgot to do that and lost couple seconds there. Let's switch the frequency, hit nav again, and the aircraft should start turning. Also, what I didn't do is to set the course, which is 7-1. That's now set. You can set the course later. It should do, but just to be on the safe side, let's cycle nav a little bit and see if the aircraft will start turning towards the localizer. Alright, looks like it is. And as you see, the ADF needle is pointing straight ahead, which means we are on the right course, and I just lost the track of the altitude. See, everything gets a little bit busy here. We need to stay at 5600, so increase the manifold pressure for climbing a little bit, but not too much, and we will get back to 5600. We clearly don't see anything around. Actually, we can keep descending because we need to get down to 3700. Let's keep descending. I missed that, but well, we'll descend and keep the speed around 120. So we will slow down, and at this point, because now we are on approach, we'll go full mixture, full RPM, and this will allow us to control the speed by adjusting the throttle. Alright, now we are going down to 3700. I'm sorry, I think it was 3700, wasn't it? Yep, 3700. And then from there we will sit on a descent path of 800 feet per minute, 7 or 800 feet per minute until 3300 or 3200, and expecting to see a visual of the runway. If we don't, that is too bad, but we need to then do a missed approach, which in this case I might try to land, but in normal conditions, in real life, you shouldn't be doing it. Alright, we are coming up to 3700. Let's shallow the descent and wait for a visual, and we'll go down when we pass 3700 and set a 700 per minute descent rate until 3200 and expect to see the runway. Alright, 3700 is there. Let's increase this to 700 per minute. Keep our speed, and we will start introducing flaps and everything here in a little bit. I'm just waiting to see the runway, and we'll come back on the throttle and slow down a little bit more. I need to increase some more drag, so we will go flaps 1 or 10-degree flaps at this point to slow the aircraft down further. And that's yelling at us because it's thinking we have to extend the landing gear or drop the landing gear, which we haven't. Let's do that too. Landing gear is now coming down, and it will create more drag for us to slow down. So let's turn off the taxi light for now, but turn on the landing lights. We are in the clouds still, as we can tell, and we are aiming for 100 knots of indicated airspeed. Alright, we passed 3200 and still no sign of runway. At this point, you have to do a go around. But I will keep descending for the sake of the tutorial and see what happens at the end, whether we see the runway or not and whether we can land or not. We'll keep the speed at 100 knots, about 100 knots, which we are there right now. So now I'm controlling our speed with the throttles. We'll go full flaps just in case we need to do a go around, and we are still on correct course and path according to the ADF and our NAV1 radio. Let's synchronize the heading just in case anything goes wrong. I won't have time to fix it during landing. And we will keep descending like this. Airspeed is dropping, so we'll keep it around 9800 knots, so add more throttle to maintain the airspeed, and still looking for the runway. Still not seeing anything, so we'll see what happens at the end. But I am just checking the map on my other screen, a little nav map, and we are very close to the runway. So if we don't see it, that means we are not going to be able to land. We are 2.7 miles away from the runway, as you see on our DME information here. Excuse me, and still no sign of runway. If we don't see it, we will not land. That's the outer marker flashing here, so we are in the runway range or in our short final, and still no sign of the runway. So this in real life is a go around or redirection to a different airport, because the weather conditions are not good enough to land to this airport. Okay, and the airport Juneau has a water strip too for float planes to land, and it's on the right side on the runway. And if we are not having a visual of the runway, we might not be able to land, because, well, you guessed it, we might land in water by mixing up the runways, because there are no visuals and there is no vertical guidance. We are approaching 1000 feet, still no sign of the runway, maintaining the airspeed around 100 knots, which is nice. Full flaps configured for landing, but still no sign of the runway, so we might not be able to make this landing. I don't see the lights, but I started seeing the ground a little bit, so we might maybe see the runway here in a little bit and actually be able to land. And that's because, there you go, that's the runway, guys. So let's disconnect the autopilot now, and it's my plane. I will be guiding the plane down into the runway. Let's correct my view. That's looks like a slight turn that we discussed, and we are too high, so we need to nose dive a little bit, because this happened because we didn't have a visual of the runway. So now I'm turning to get to the center line, and this is very steep descent, which we shouldn't do. And this looks like the runway, not the water strip. If it is, we're done. And as you see, the weather is terrible, so we are keeping the nose up. Touchdown, bring the throttles back, let the aircraft roll, and apply brakes slowly, because this will turn you left and right. There is still crosswind coming from our right side. Alright, now braking to slow the aircraft down, and we will use that next exit, as you see in front of us, to exit the runway. Okay, even the visual was not there. Not a terrible landing, and that's because I just checked the vertical profile and followed that accordingly. Let's bring the flaps in, and let's take this high-speed exit. Stop there for a second and clean the aircraft up. Alright, there we go. Nice and easy. Alright, we'll stop here. Turn the taxi lights on. Turn off the landing lights. That's better. Transponder goes back to standby. We don't need the weather radar anymore, so that comes off. We don't need the flight director or autopilot, so that is also coming off. Let me check any other thing. Yeah, we don't need any frequencies or anything like that, but that's pretty much cleaned up. And now we can start taxiing. Let's add some power and climb up to about 1000 RPM. The aircraft should start moving. And I am looking for a parking spot on our left side. That's, I think, where the terminal is. We can also refer to the VFR map to see where the terminal building of this airport is, but I see buildings on our right ahead of us, so that's where I'm going, and that looks about right. We will go around here and find a parking spot. We can use this next taxiway exit on our right and find the parking over here. That looks like a general aviation area, or we can take the next exit and park where the gates are. So that's the plan. Okay guys, I think we made it despite all the challenges we had during landing. But as I said, LDA approaches, you have to have a visual of the runway and continue visual after the minimums. If you cannot, then you need to go around or go to a different airport if the airport you have cannot guide you for landing. This is where an ILS becomes very handy, because it guides you to the airport and offers vertical navigation. Even this looks like it's not a GA parking area. I'm gonna start going towards there and park next to this gate, just for the sake of the video and not to keep you guys here while I'm taxiing to find the proper parking spot. But let's stop here. A little bit rough braking there. Set the parking brakes. Now prop heat, windshield heat, ice light, and pitot heat. I should have turned pitot heat while exiting the runway, but anyway, comes off. Taxi lights now can come off. We'll turn the strobe on. We should have done this when we exit the runway, and instead of the strobe we should have gone to the beacon, but that's okay. Now what's left for us is, and by the way, I forgot because it was too busy, you turn on the fuel pumps during landing and takeoff to make sure engines are receiving fuel. But I forgot to do that, so that's bad piloting on me. But we are ready to shut the engines down. So right engine first, coming to cutoff. Right engine is now off. Left engine coming to cutoff. Left engine is now off. Now we can turn the strobe off. We'll keep the nav lights on because we still have power to the aircraft. Let's bring our tablet, put the static elements, and open the doors. Alright, that's pretty much it. Now our passengers can leave the aircraft safely. Still iced, snow on the ground, but this was an exciting, fun flight on my end. I hope you guys enjoyed the video too. If you did, please consider giving a like. I keep saying this at the end of each video. I hope you are watching this until the end and hearing what I'm saying. It helps this video to reach other people by giving a like. That affects the YouTube algorithm. Alright, let's turn the mags off. Left mags are off, right mags are off. Now we can turn the alternators off, and finally we can turn the battery master to off. Alright guys, that's about it. Welcome to Juneau. And one thing I forgot is, I always do, turn the nav light off. And yep, strobe goes off as well. Alright, that's it guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and it was helpful to you. If you are a channel subscriber, thank you very much for your continuous support. If you stumbled upon this video, please consider subscribing and turning on the notifications to get notified for future videos and live stream schedule. Thank you very much, guys, and I will be seeing you in the next video.